Hola, peeps. Here's my reflection for Chapter 6 on assessment. I'm not going to lie, I think assessment is the hardest part of our job. I think it's easy to slap a grade on something, but it's harder to really do what assessment really means. Assessment comes from the Latin word which means to sit beside. So everything that crosses our desk, things that we write on, we give feedback to, is a way of sitting beside the kid and helping out, working on what they're doing. And I think that's hard. I think there's so much time where we're trying to be teaching, and then we also need that time where we can have either the small groups or the one-on-one with kids to really make sure that they are getting what they need to be getting, and also making it specific. If you have a kid who is really struggling with writing a topic sentence, if you have a kid that struggles with writing warrants, if you have a kid who is alluding to a fact but is not directly stating it. I mean, there's lots of things that kids need help with, and that's why we're there, but I think it's just really difficult. So the question becomes, how do we do it? How do we sit beside? How do we give the support and use more formative assessment than summative? I mean, I've never enjoyed reading the big projects at the very end because it seems kind of tedious. The formative part, I feel, is most beneficial to the kids and is most beneficial to me because it makes me a better teacher. If I have 10 kids who all come back and they're writing research papers and none of them are really getting to the why of anything, then that tells me something as a teacher that I need to go back and do a better job of teaching how to get to the why. I mean, they might even not know how to ask the why because that's just developmentally whether or not. On page 109, Troy was talking about formative assessment digital writing. He wrote about mode and media, about genre and audience. Audience, who is the intended audience, what other audience might I reach, intentionally or unintentionally, purpose, situation for the writer in the writing. What do I know about this topic and the digital writing tool that I hope to employ? How much time and training might I need to create this piece of digital writing? And as I was reading this really stood out to me as these are all decisions that kids have to make. And I know I'm not a fan of worksheets, but this might be something as far as when kids are just beginning and they're starting to create something, be it old technology or new technology. I think this is something that they should be asking, and a lot of our kids do ask this. They are considering their audience. Sandy, in your blog post, you wrote about how you are always considering an audience, but you're a good writer, and I think good writers do that. I think the kids that struggle with their writing don't see a clear purpose, and they don't have a clear audience. I think they're just trying to do what they think a teacher or someone really wants. He goes on page 109. Another interesting way to think about design and how to create pieces of digital writing comes from Robin Williams and her Non-Designer's Design book. In this text, she outlines the 4 principles of design: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. I think this is fabulous. I think this is really tapping into purpose and audience. I think that looking at it in this situation frees writing from just being something in an English or language arts classroom, which I love. I think the idea of, writing in an art class, writing in a technology class, and being able to explain the purposeful decisions that kids made in their piece of work, not just writing, but the digital text they are creating, I think is fabulous. I think that's where we need to be. I think when students make purposeful decisions over what they're doing, usually those decisions are, if they are really, really purposeful rather than just slapping something down, that's great quality. That's great work. That's what we're after. On page 110, Troy Hicks writes about the difference between effective and ineffective digital writers. And in my mind, I was kind of seeing something out of those back earlier, like around 2001, 2002. There was a movement on these 90-90-90 schools where they have 90% free and reduced, 90% this, but then 90% proficiency on the state exams. And one of the things that they talked about that they did, and something that Jeff Anderson uses in his classroom, who he wrote, I'm forgetting the book. Mechanically Inclined. He wrote Mechanically Inclined, and he covers his walls with things that kids produce and rubrics and other stuff. This reminded me of that, where you have two columns. So we're not, it's not standards based 4, 3, 2, 1, but I think this is effective, where you have what effective writers do and what ineffective writers do. And I kind of saw this as a piece where kids could be using this to help themselves make their writing better, or whatever digital text they are creating. So, all right, what are some things that you could do to improve? And so if this was up as like a checklist in the room, or maybe as a checklist on a piece of paper, and they make a decision and they explain why they're making that decision. And I think if, rather than it just being something kids write down, but something they share, and it could be sharing in small groups, it could be sharing with a purpose of getting feedback as to what else they could do. It could also be something they share with us, maybe one-on-one or maybe in small groups, but I think for them to hear each other and for them to be talking to each other and have these conversations, I feel would be really, really beneficial. And this goes on for several pages, and I just thought, what a cool idea, what a great way to change assessment and to make kids a greater part of this process and really create something spectacular. The last piece that I want to talk about is on page 124, where Troy Hicks writes, looking ahead, imagining a framework for instruction in your digital writing workshop. At first, this was a little daunting to me, I'm not going to lie. The whole idea of a framework, of having everything laid out and a system and a complete scope and sequence and knowing what's going to happen. And then I realized this is teaching. This is 21st century technology, and to be honest, the teachers, we are never going to be the experts. We are never going to be the experts with this really cool digital technology. And I think that's okay. I think it's great that we want to learn about it. I think it's important. I think good teachers should learn about this. But I think that we also have to kind of cut ourselves a little bit of slack, but also understand that times change. And that maybe in the past the teacher did know the most about whatever, but I've had kids that came into class that would go on and on and on about Twilight and about this character and that character in Twilight and how they're really, really similar. However, these two things are different, and that's changed everything. If they're really, really excited about something, they're going to delve really deep. They're going to find pieces of themselves in what they're doing, and they're going to draw connections to other things. With having a framework, I think we need to give ourselves a break and understand that we're not going to know everything. And it's okay to change things. If we start off first quarter and we try this and it doesn't work, I think we need to be adult enough to say, okay, this isn't working, we need to change something. So if we start using blogs with our kids and it becomes a management nightmare, that we say, okay, maybe we're not going to do that. Maybe it's just going to be, like a once a month thing, and only these people are going to do it then and someone else is going to do it later. We've got to be kind to ourselves. We need to give ourselves permission to fail and to learn from that failure. And then when we learn from that failure, then we go and we create success with those kids. And I think by looking at the word framework, we need to understand that it has to be flexible and has to work for us. And so we've got to try some things and understand that there are times that we are going to fall on our faces. And when we learn from it and we share, what failed and why we think it failed and what we're going to do differently the next time, I think that's where we succeed. I think that's where we make education what it should be. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up.